It's like there's something up there. Oh, no, look at it, come here. Come here, come here, come here. What is that?
I don't know any of this for sure, but I'm going with what I experienced at the time and with what my eyeballs are telling me. And they're telling me that there is indeed two creatures there with two distinct facial structures.
In the dark forests and winding trails of North America, countless people claim they've seen something extraordinary. Towering, shadowy, and unforgettable, Bigfoot. Tonight we dive into true testimonies, told by those who swear their encounters were real. But are these sightings proof or simply stories? Deep in West Virginia's Monongahela National Forest, where thick trees and rocky cliffs hide secrets, folks whisper about Bigfoot. Les Odell, a local who loves these mountains, shared a wild tale from the roaring plains on the channel's small-town monsters. Two campers set up by a creek, but their night turned strange when pebbles started hitting their tent. They felt eyes on them, like something was watching from the dark.
Stuff was being thrown, where they thought, each one of them thought the other one was doing it. They like, hey, quit messing with me, don't, you know. And then they found out, no, you know, this is coming from the woods. So they, again, decided to go to the Roaring Plains area, because the one fellow had already been to the meadows.
One camper, recovering from knee surgery, stayed back while his friend hiked. That friend spotted a huge, hairy figure, about 7 feet tall, looking into their tent. Under a bright full moon, the creature came back.
And he noticed it stands up, and he said, this thing is massive. It's like 7 to 8 feet, 7.5 feet tall or something there. And it's all hairy, but he's thinking, you know, this is one of them hairy wild people that he's, you know, basically a feral person, he's thinking.
The camper, thinking it was a guy in a suit, tried talking to it. He reached out and it grabbed his arm, mimicking him with a grunt, "You real," but without the L sound. The shock made him faint.
And he said that's when it tried to mimic him. He said, but it didn't say, when it said, "You're real," he said it didn't add the L. It just would go, "You're real," like that. And, well, it takes off again. It leaves.
His buddy saw the thing grab his wrist and knee brace, dragging him to a pipeline and leaving him there. They wondered if it was a feral person, not a typical Bigfoot, since its hair was thin, showing skin underneath. Later, on another trip, the same camper saw the creature again. By the campfire, it tore apart a deer, its face bloody in the flickering light, a creepy, unforgettable sight.
Not trying to like cook it or anything like that, like tearing pieces off this deer. And he said it was extremely eerie, because he said you look over and you see this thing chewing on this deer, biting into this like deer leg or whatever. His face is covered in blood.
Next, we have Greg Lambert, who is a local researcher with experiences and stories to share. In the 1980s, a truck driver smelled a horrible stench like death and saw a Bigfoot in his headlights, staring right at him.
They're around. So he gets out of his truck, and he's walking around his truck. He's checking stuff out. And he goes to get back in his truck, and he smells this horrible smell and turns and looks in his headlights, and there's one standing looking at him.
Another tale from the 1970s involved a man's sister. She and a friend saw a big black shape dart into the woods. That night, rocks hit their barn roof. They thought it was her brothers pranking, but everyone denied it. Les himself found weird clues.
That night, they had a loft in the barn where they had a room set up. Rocks, not big rocks, but, about yay size, and pebbles started hitting the roof on the barn.
Near a creek, he saw wide footprints with rounded heels, unlike any human or boot tracks. He also found trees crossed in an X, like a warning to stay away. Once he heard chattering and something crashing through the brush, too fast for a cow or bear. West Virginia's mountains, Full of deer, berries, streams, and thick forests are perfect for hiding. Folks here live close to the wild, so Bigfoot sightings feel real. Les has seen glowing eyes and heard rocks thrown, but he's still not sure. Is it Bigfoot, a wild person, or just the spirit of the woods watching from the shadows? The mystery keeps him coming back.
We're back up in Dry Fork, doing a night investigation in a remote part of the canyon in between a couple of Bigfoot sightings. We're kind of like halfway between the Dry Fork Bigfoot sighting.
The night air in Utah's Dry Fork Canyon was sharp, biting at their faces as two Bigfoot hunters trudged through a remote stretch of wilderness, as shown by Rocky Mountain Sasquatch Channel, halfway between the fabled Dry Fork and Flaming Gorge sightings. Snow crunched under their boots, patches glowing under a full moon, perfect for spotting tracks. They weren't far from Skinwalker Ranch, a place whispering of strange things, maybe even a link between Bigfoot and Skinwalkers, though locals swore the two were different.
Mind you, south of where we're at is also Skinwalker country. I've always often wondered if there's some type of relation between Skinwalker and Bigfoot. And, you know, people that know about Skinwalkers assure me that there's no relation, but they seem to be Bigfoot and Skinwalkers. Activity seems to be going on in the same area.
Still, the coincidence of both lurking in these parts set their nerves on edge. They moved through dense woods, flashlights slicing the dark. Bark was torn off trees, like something big had clawed for grubs, leaving jagged scars on dying trunks. Animals do that, one said, but his voice wavered. They were among the first humans here this season, the snowmelt barely letting them in. No crowds, no tracks, just the eerie quiet of a canyon hiding secrets. One hiker, still shaky from bronchitis, felt the 31-degree cold sting his lungs, but the hunt kept him going.
About the same distance away from Skinwalker Ranch, on a different side than where we typically do a lot of our actual squatting. We're just, on the other side.
A memory from 2012 haunted him. A bear had stalked him, his wife, and daughter at night, unnoticed for too long. Now, he kept glancing back, heart thumping. They carried only mace, their firearm left at camp, a risky move with moose or mama bears around. Then, a sound, soft steps circling them, too quiet for their clumsy boots. "You hear that?" one whispered, pulse racing. "It's out there, moving." It skirted them, silent as a ghost, while they sounded like a herd.
I stirred it again. Something's walking up that way. It's dark out. You want your light off? Gotta have some type of IR illumination for this camera.
In the thick brush, they found a deer leg, hoof, hair, and bone, no tooth marks. A clean kill, but by what? Not a cat, they figured, puzzled by the lack of bites. The woods felt tighter, like eyes were watching from 15 feet away, ready to ambush.
I know, but there was a different noise besides that airplane flying over. Something made a noise this way. It's like it made the noise knowing that the airplane would cover up its sound,
A crumbling noise hit, timed with a plane's drone overhead, like something used the sound to mask its move. "It knows we're here," they muttered, gripping their mace tighter. A whistle cut through, faint but chilling, followed by a scream down the canyon, like something out of Finding Bigfoot. "That's no elk," one said, half laughing, half spooked. They pushed toward the sound, hearts pounding, but found only silence. Then, a footprint, 14 inches long, 7 inches wide, pressed deep in soft mud, toes pointing uphill. It stood out starkly under their spotlight, too big for human or bear.
We've looked at a lot of the snow patches back here, and definitely hasn't been a Bigfoot across any of them. But with as much dry ground as around, why walk in snow if you don't have to?
Back at their favorite camp, elk scat littered the ground, a sign of life in this wild place. The moon lit their way, but the cold bit hard. No wind chill to blame for the shivers. They'd camped here twice last year, drawn to its quiet beauty. But tonight felt different. A chatter, then another whistle, teased their ears, too strange for coyotes or birds. "We're not alone," one said, voice low, as they headed back, boots heavy with mud. Dry Forks canyons, thick with elk, streams, and hiding spots, are built for mysteries. They found no Bigfoot prints in the snow. Smart creatures might stick to dry ground. But the circling steps, the deer kill, that massive footprint, and those eerie calls screamed something was out there. Was it Bigfoot, marking its turf? A skinwalker playing tricks? Or just the wild messing with their heads? They'd return at dawn, chasing the screams that echoed in their minds, hooked on the canyon's secrets. In the dense woods of North Carolina in December 2022, where tall pines stand like silent guards, a man went looking for answers and found terror instead. He'd heard stories of something big lurking nearby, so he grabbed his camera and headed out. What started as curiosity turned into a nightmare when he got too close. Up in the trees, branches cracked like gunfire, limbs thicker than his arms snapping like twigs.
It's like there's something up there. Oh, no, look at it, come here. Come here, come here.
Another video from South Carolina came in was also published, courtesy to Squatch Mafia, where we can see it while it was initially published in May 2022. "It sounds like gorillas fighting up there," he whispered, heart pounding. Whatever it was ruining the forest, breaking healthy trees that would take him minutes to saw through. The first time he came, it threw limbs at him like a warning to back off. This second visit, he crept closer, trying to figure it out. But the thing didn't like company. Right above him, something huge shifted, and a massive branch came crashing down. "Look at that! What in God's name is doing this?" he yelled, zooming in on the destruction. The tree was 8 to 12 inches thick, healthy as could be, but it got snapped like a matchstick.
Look, that's bigger than me. Look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that, look at that. What in Jesus' name is doing this? Oh my God, he just took half the tree down. Something, oh my God, oh my God.
"It's bigger than me, stronger than a bear," he gasped, realizing a bear wouldn't stand a chance. "Oh my God, it's pissed!" The ground shook as the trunk hit the earth, and he knew it was coming down. "I think he's about to face me on foot," he said, backing away fast. No way he wanted to tangle with something that could rip trees apart in anger. North Carolina's forests, full of deer and hidden hollows, are perfect for big secrets. Locals whisper about shadows that move too quiet and too fast. This man wasn't hunting fame. He just wanted to know. But the snaps, the throws, the sheer power left him shaking. Was it a Sasquatch defending its turf? Or something meaner, straight out of the wild? He bounced out of there, but the broken trees stand as proof. One question haunts him still. What else is out there, breaking the woods when no one's looking? On a quiet beach in Shirley, a small town on Vancouver Island, Canada, a family vacation turned spooky as shared on the channel, Cabin in the Woods. A dad and his daughter, Lily, were climbing a big driftwood log when a rock came out of nowhere, smacking the log near Lily's head. No one else was around, no people, no hiding spots for a prankster. The dad wondered if a Bigfoot threw it, as the thick bushes nearby could hide something big.
Briefly, the encounters began with a stone being mysteriously thrown at my daughter and I while we were climbing on a large driftwood log on a remote beach in a small town on southern Vancouver Island called Shirley. There was no one around to have thrown the stone, and there was no spot that I could see that a person could be hiding, but there were certainly areas where one of these creatures could have thrown a stone from.
Lily said it felt like the rock was aimed at her, making her heart race.
Anyway, you thought it was a Sasquatch throwing a rock at me.
Well, I only thought that later because I was thinking, how could it have been a human? Because there was no humans around, right?
Yeah, and also, I think that rock was like, the rock hit the log, but if I hadn't been safe behind the log, it would have hit me right in the head.
The next day, near their cottage, the dad explored woods known for strange tales. He heard a weird grunt, like a throat clearing, and a tree creaking as if twisted. He found healthy trees snapped or pushed over, odd for a forest with no storms. Then he saw it, a huge black shape, 8 to 9 feet tall, moving through the bushes.
I investigated some woods with a mysterious reputation near the country cottage where we were staying on Vancouver Island, and I heard some weird noises, kind of a throat-clearing grunt sound and the sound of a tree being twisted. I went back the next day and I found some fallen trees that seemed to be completely healthy but just seemed to have been pushed over and broken. Actually, I found one fallen tree first, and then I saw something. I saw a large hulking black shape that appeared to have moved.
It was too big for a bear, and it vanished the next day, unlike any root ball or stump. At first he thought it was one creature, but after sharing his story online, a viewer named Katie sent him enhanced screenshots from his video. They showed two faces in the bushes, one big, with a shoulder and arm, and another smaller, darker face, maybe crouching.
Katie had taken the trouble to try to sharpen these couple of screenshots from that footage, and she explained to me in her note that she believed that there were two of them there, because in her opinion there were two distinct faces visible peeking through the thick bushes and foliage that I was trying to peer through at the time that I got the footage.
The dad, 50 to 60 yards away, hadn't noticed the second face while filming.
I was a little bit skeptical at first, to be honest. She wasn't the first person to react this way. I had gotten a number of comments on that video with people explaining that they thought it was more than one creature. And I kind of thought, well, yeah, you're just seeing things. I was there. I think it was just one big one.
The more he looked, the clearer it seemed. Two creatures, not one.
But I looked at these screenshots that this lady, Katie, had sent, and the more I looked at these screenshots that she had filtered and sharpened a little bit in Photoshop, the more I thought, yeah, it kind of does look like there's two faces there. In fact, it really looks like there's two faces there.
He started thinking the bigger creature might have been marking its territory, maybe protecting a smaller one, like a parent guarding a young Bigfoot. The grunt and tree twisting could have been a warning to stay away. Vancouver Island's dense forests, full of deer and fish, are perfect for hiding. The dad wasn't looking for Bigfoot fame. He just wanted to share with family. But the eerie rock throw, the strange noises, and those two faces changed him. Now he believes something real is out there.
But when I went back the day after spotting this thing and it was gone, well, then I knew. Root balls don't vanish, they don't grow legs and walk, so what are we dealing with here? A bear doesn't make sense, a human doesn't make sense, but a Bigfoot does. If you're willing to have an open-minded perspective and agree that just because something isn't classified by science yet, doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't exist.
Is it Bigfoot watching from the shadows? Or something else? The mystery keeps him wondering.
That I believe I'm seeing in these visuals was a juvenile creature, and perhaps this was a large male or maybe a large female protecting itself, and more importantly protecting its young. Again, I don't know any of this for sure, but I'm going with what I experienced at the time and with what my eyeballs are telling me. And they're telling me that there is indeed two creatures there with two distinct facial structures separate from each other.
In the heart of Missouri's Ozark Wilderness, where the Merrimack River carves through ancient forests, Miguel Ramirez found himself drawn to the wild. A hunter and outdoorsman, Miguel wasn't looking for legends when he set up his black chair beside a cedar tree on private land. But the forest had other plans that led him to share his experience about Bigfoot on the channel A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. One calm morning, after a fruitless hunt, he returned to find the top of that cedar, 6 inches thick, snapped clean off, lying beside his chair like a creepy message. No wind, no storm, just the sharp scent of fresh cedar in the air. It was as if the forest itself, or something in it, was watching him.
That's kind of a funnel zone, and right next to my chair was the top of that cedar tree. What I found unusual was this cedar tree was probably about 6 or 8 inches in diameter, and it was freshly broken. And like I said, just a calm night. There was 0 wind. So I pondered as to how that cedar tree broke. And it was so fresh that you could smell the cedar. And like I said, the top was sitting next to the chair, which was very unusual. And that was one of my first experiences.
Years later, as a high schooler cruising down a state highway with his friend Bruce, dusk painted the Ozarks in shades of shadow. A possum darted across the road, and Bruce floored it, chasing the thrill. But before they could hit it, a creature, massive, gray, with a mane like a lion's and the bulk of a hyena, jumped out from the woods. It snatched the possum in its jaws, shook it like a rag doll, and vanished back into the trees.
Me and a friend, his name was Bruce. I was in high school, and we decided to go on a road trip after school, and we were going down a state highway. At this point, it was getting dark, and my friend saw a possum, and right when we about hit the possum, this canine creature leaped out of the forest into the center of the highway, snatched up this possum, threw it up in its mouth, and shook it around like a rag doll and tore back off into the woods.
Miguel's heart pounded. Was it a wild dog? A hellhound? Or something else entirely? Something that didn't belong in Missouri's woods? Time passed, and Miguel's curiosity grew.
It was just strange because of the size of the creature. It was so bulky, and I've never seen anything like it. At the time, I thought maybe this is some type of wild dog living out in the forest. But as soon as that happened, my friend slammed on the brakes and he said, "Whoa, did you see that?" I said, "Yeah, what was that?" And he's like, "I don't know." And we didn't know at the time what it was.
By his mid-20s, he was camping along the Merrimack with his ex-girlfriend, their fire crackling under a July sky. They laughed about finding Bigfoot, swapping stories of her uncle's encounter with a screaming Sasquatch in the snowy South.
The next serious experience that I had was me and an ex-girlfriend. We decided to go to the Merrimack River to go camping. It was probably around July. I'm not sure what year it was. I was in my mid-20s. Same time we did. She came from down south, which is really wooded, and she claims that her uncle shot at a Sasquatch. He followed the tracks in the snow for about 1.5 miles, 2 miles, and when he shot at the Sasquatch, it just turned around and screamed at him.
Half joking, Miguel grabbed a baseball bat and pounded a maple tree, sending a wood knock echoing through the valley. He whooped, and her young son joined in, their voices bouncing off the river bottoms. Then, without warning, a massive tree crashed to the ground nearby, and same as before. There was no wind, no reason, just a thunderous boom that shook the earth.
And I got a baseball bat out of the SUV, and I did a really loud wood knock on a huge maple tree on the river bottom, and you could hear the knock echo all throughout the valley. And then I did a few whoops, and her son, he started whooping too, which was kind of cute for a little kid. As the floaters passed by, we heard this ginormous tree, and you can see the trees behind me. They're huge on the river bottoms. This huge tree just came crashing down. You can hear limbs.
He couple froze, eyes wide. What had they stirred? As night fell and the floaters cleared out, the river grew silent. Around the campfire, a scream tore through the darkness. An 8-second wail like a woman tortured, mixed with a monstrous roar.
It started getting dark, and once it gets dark, all the floaters clear off because they get to the campgrounds, and the river just goes quiet. There's no one out there. We were the only ones there, and we were sitting around the fire, and all of a sudden, this thing behind us just screamed. And I mean, the scream lasted about 8 seconds. It was just this horrifying, it was like a woman being gutted or a woman being tortured. It was like that mixed with some type of unknown monster is the best way I can describe it. Just a...
Miguel's ex urged him to grab his Glock, but something deep inside stopped him. Intuition whispered, "Don't move, or it'll come closer." The scream faded, and they retreated to their tent, hearts racing, wondering what lurked just beyond the firelight.
I knew right there in that moment that there was something out there that people call Sasquatch. But the reason I did not grab the pistol, something inside me told me, like my intuition said, if you grab that gun, whatever that is going to come into camp and tear you guys apart. So I was like, no, it's cool. I think whatever it is gone now. And we went to bed that night in the tent.
A month later, back at his home 5 minutes from the Merrimack, Miguel couldn't shake the memory. Standing on his deck, he let out another whoop into the night. The response was immediate. A bulldozer-like crash through the woods, snapping branches in a zigzag charge toward his yard.
And I live 5 minutes away from this location off of the Merrimack River. I was on my back deck after work. I kept thinking about the river incident, the one I just told you guys about. So I did that same whoop off of my back porch, just this loud whoop, and something came charging through the woods. It sounded like a bulldozer. I always describe it like somebody put like a Ford Ranger or an S10 pickup truck in neutral and let it roll down through the woods. And as this thing was moving through the woods, it was snapping and cracking all kinds of branches, but it did like a zigzag pattern.
It stopped at the tree line, silent, watching. Then came the lights, glowing orbs hovering around his house, tapping nails on windows, and the eerie sound of a baby crying inside, though no child was there. One snowy night, as the crying echoed, Miguel glimpsed a woman in a white dress drifting along the highway.
Things that unfolded after that were extremely unusual. We would see these balls of light hovering around the house. Something would come up to the window and tap on the window, but you could hear the nails clicking on the window, like click, 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 click. We'd hear like a baby crying in the house. We looked everywhere, and then I looked out the window and it was snowing, it was dark outside, but it was one of those nights where you could still see outside because everything's white, and I saw this woman in a white dress walking off the side of the highway.
Relocating to a quieter spot further out, Miguel's encounters intensified. Checking a trail camera one day, he heard whistles, sharp, human-like, then dual-toned, unnatural, sort of surrounding him.
Went to the trail camera and grabbed the SD card, and I'm standing there, and I hear this loud whistle to my left coming down the forest road, just real loud human whistle. I don't know if you ever heard someone whistle where they put their fingers in their mouth, like that type of sharp whistle, like a cattle farmer calling in his dog or his cattle, something like that. Really loud, distinct, very human-like.
Miguel stood paralyzed, his thoughts vacuumed away, until it vanished into the cedars. Moments later, a caveman-like grunt and heavy breathing confirmed it. This was no bear, no trick of the mind. This was Sasquatch. Miguel's life was at rock bottom, jobless, heartbroken, and crippled by back pain. Yet this encounter sparked something new. The forest's mystery gave him purpose, a reason to keep going.
And he disappeared from he walked through the oaks and into the cedar trees and disappeared. I couldn't believe what I just encountered. I couldn't believe it. And I took off running down the driveway despite the fact that my back was out. Somehow with the adrenaline, the back pain was gone. Didn't hear anything, and then all of a sudden I started hearing, this was not a white-tailed deer. It sounded huge. You could tell it had big lungs, and I know it was the creature that I had just seen, and I knew for sure what I had just encountered was a Sasquatch.
He began sharing his story on his YouTube channel, Sasquatch Theory, connecting with others who'd seen the unexplainable. Each tale of broken deer legs, tree structures, and glowing eyes validated his truth. But the question lingered, heavy as the dark night. Was it really Bigfoot out there, or something we have yet to discover? In Ontario's Whispering Woods, along the sprawling Bruce Trail in Aurelia, we see Angelo chasing Bigfoot rumors in a forest steeped in eerie tales. Known for paranormal vibes and Sasquatch sightings, the massive woodland buzzed with strange energy. We see his journey on exploring with Angelo. Days earlier, he'd heard heavy footsteps, moans, grunts, and a voice yelling, "My house," like something or someone was displaying a claim to these woods.
Showed up while we were on the trail on the opposite side and basically started yelling out, "My house," or something like that. So I don't know what their problem is. That is what it sounded like to me, and several of you guys also commented the same thing. So we're going back in. We're gonna go and see what might be out here. Maybe we'll catch a Bigfoot on camera. But yeah, this is kind of a lead up because in British Columbia, there is a specific area that we are going to go to again, and it is known as the Bigfoot sighting capital of the world.
This time he packed light, bringing just essentials and 2 apples, one for him, one for Bigfoot.
I already feel so gross, but we're gonna try and survive out here as long as we possibly can. I do also have some news about our upcoming trip. I'm gonna actually leave that here. Bigfoot, if you are here, this one is for you. You can enjoy the apple. There you go. And this one is for me.
Hiking through humid dusk, he tackled steep trails, sweat dripping as planes roared overhead, drowning out subtler sounds. A deep moan, cow-like but off, cut through. Not horses, not anything local.
Okay, I just heard a moan now. There was another time we kept hearing, it sounded like, almost like cows. But I can't figure out where the cows are out here. I literally drove around and there's no dairy farms. Or at least not that I can see anyways. There's horses, but they don't moo. That sounds so awkward. They don't moo, they neigh, but...
He tried 3 wood knocks, a rumored Bigfoot signal. Small rustles answered, then a louder scrape, like claws on bark. At a familiar spot, he set an apple out for Bigfoot. While munching his own, he heard tree scraping noises.
What is that? Someone was just moving back there. What was that? Sorry guys, I'm still chewing on the apple.
Then, his half-eaten apple vanished from his pack. Gone. No trace. Using a spirit box, he caught eerie voices. Devastation, from the pit, and Betty, tying to the wood's haunted lore.
Or a spirit box, and just for a couple of minutes, just to see if anything comes through. Maybe they can even tell us where the Bigfoot is, where he's hiding, or sheep, or whatever. Yeah. Alright, spirits, Bigfoot, cryptids, whatever's out here, contact me on this thingy. You can use your words.
A stick hit his camera, not there before, stabbed high into the ground, too high for most animals.
Oh, man, what the? Something literally just hit the camera.
3 knocks echoed ahead, met by a distant, non-human voice, not coyote or hiker. A musty smell, like faint decay, lingered, hinting at something nearby. Wild blueberries lined the trail, enough to feed a bear or something bigger. The forest, thick with hiding spots and food, pulsed with mystery. Locals talk of Bigfoot tracks, too big for any known animal.
Yeah, there also was a story recently about a Bigfoot sighting, and not only that, but somebody saw tracks. Like, it looked like big, not human tracks, and definitely bigger than any animal tracks that you would normally find out here.
Was it a Sasquatch stealing apples and knocking back? A ghost from the haunted woods? Or a hermit shouting warnings? The trail's secrets, grunts, vanishing fruit, thrown sticks, kept pulling him back, each sound a clue to what hides in the dark. Down in Arkansas's Boggy Creek, where the swamp alive with frogs and the dark hides secrets, a guy who loved Bigfoot stories as a kid decided to chase the legend. Growing up, he watched every Bigfoot show on TV, dreaming of the Fook monster. Now, as a grown man, he joined friends at the Fook Monster Festival, ready to hunt for answers in the creepy river bottoms as shared on the channel Wild Man of the Woods. The swamp was loud, bugs chirping, trees like a tunnel closing in. It felt like something was watching. One night he and his buddies parked by the Sulphur River, where it feeds into Boggy Creek. They tried Bigfoot calls hoping for a reply. A howl came back from the dark, maybe a coyote, maybe something else. Every twig snap made their hearts race. Was it just the swamp playing tricks, or was the Fook monster out there?
And this is like an iconic Bigfoot area. My pals out here have been doing some calls. Haven't heard anything. We were up the road a little bit here earlier. Heard something off in the distance after a call, but kind of inconclusive. Might have been a dog, might have been a coyote. But it's so still and creepy.
Back in 2003 at Cottonwood Lake in Texas, Ken Gerhard, a cryptozoologist, camped with friends after hearing about Bigfoot sightings. Right after sunset, a loud grunt like an ape's roar stopped them cold. Their spotlight caught glowing eyes, way too high for a bear.
Another guy named Patrick, on August 18, 2003, we were at Cottonwood Lake up in North Texas. We'd heard there were Bigfoot sightings in the area, so we were kind of there, just kind of feeling it out. And right after the sun went down, and I've got this on videotape because I was the AV guy on this particular expedition, something started to grunt at us. And it was like, oh, 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 oh. It sounded like an ape. I mean, this was like a primate sound, like a howler monkey or something, but it was really loud and powerful.
Next morning, they found big, human-like footprints and turtle shells ripped in half. No animal they knew could do that.
And throughout the course of the night, there was some other weird stuff. We heard these moans coming across the lake, kind of like howling noises. And the very next morning, when we finally got daylight, we were able to cut our way into this heavy brush, and there was a beach on the lake. And there were some deep human-like footprints in the sand, and there were a bunch of good-sized turtle shells that had been ripped in half from top to bottom and like just scattered there. And I can't think of any other explanation as to what could rip a turtle in half.
Another testimony of a Bigfoot researcher and author, Jerry Hestand, in the Mercer Bayou Swamp, they used a call blaster to mimic Bigfoot sounds. They played it once, and he heard it again. He thought they might have switched the plan, but the sound continued.
Well, that night we got set up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and my buddy set up a call blaster, and those familiar with Bigfoot know that you can make Bigfoot supposed vocalization sounds with an amplifier and a speaker and possibly get a reply. So they were up on this hill, and I was down in this boat ramp sitting by myself, hopefully, able to catch something in between. And they started playing, and I heard them play the sound, but they were just supposed to play it once.
As a friend ran down from his truck, spooked, saying something was splashing and making sounds. That's when Jerry realized it was something answering back from the swamp.
A guy came down that was up on the hill sitting in a truck, and he was scared to death. He said, "Have you heard that stuff that's going on?" I said, "What?" He said, "Haven't you heard the thing screaming back from the swamp?" And there's a swamp around the truck. Said this thing was splashing around in the swamp, breaking branches and growling and stuff. And it circled me a couple of times, and it got up on the road and got a rock, and it threw it at the truck.
Another crazy experience of Marvin, who is a Bigfoot investigator. One hot July day in Oklahoma, driving a Jeep, he saw bushes move. A huge creature, on all fours, darted through the brush. It stood up, over 7 feet tall, staring at his friend before vanishing.
And he took a left, and as soon as he took a left, he said, "What is that?" And I looked up only just to see bushes move on the left-hand side of the road because I was trying to get my FLIR operational. He floorboarded it. We shot up there, and just as soon as the vehicle came to a stop, and I ran down it with the FLIR, you know, and focusing, looking, and there it was. And this animal was on all fours.
The next day, they saw how tall it really was. This wasn't a bear, it was something else. On the other end, a late-night exploration is ending with no sounds or knocks heard. Night in the swamp kept them on the edge. But apart from one suspicious wood knock and a sudden car racing down the path, they did not get in proof or anything out of the ordinary. Over time, growls, thrown rocks, and weird smells convinced him something was out there. The Fook monster wasn't just a tale, it was his adventure. But one question stayed with him. What exactly is hiding in that swamp?
And so I walked down there, walking, got a few people behind me, and all of a sudden hear what sounds like a wood knock, and I turn around and look, and then within 20-30 seconds, this car comes barreling down the road, kind of like we caught on camera earlier. So it's weird.
Location: North Carolina. The forests of North Carolina have always carried a quiet, watchful feeling. The kind that makes you look over your shoulder even when you know you're alone. For 3 North Carolinians, that feeling became much more than just nerves. Their encounters with something massive, intelligent, and terrifying are enough to shake even the most skeptical mind. Tim Wheeler is a self-proclaimed mountain man. Tough, experienced, and used to the sounds of the wild. But the night he came face to face with a creature he believes was Bigfoot, he admits it shook him to his core. He was out calling coyotes, something he'd done countless times before. The sun had dipped behind the trees, leaving just enough light to see the outline of his property. At first, he thought he had succeeded. He could hear movement, branches breaking. But what stepped out of the tree line wasn't a coyote.
This thing was 10 foot tall. He had beautiful hair. It scared me.
This thing was 10 feet tall, Tim recalls, his voice still trembling years later. It had beautiful hair, but it scared me to death. When the creature went after his dogs, Tim grabbed his gun and ran outside. I hollered at it, told it to get away. And it did. But then it came back. Panicked, he called 911. Deputies arrived, filing what they listed as a suspicious person report. But everyone who saw Tim that night knew he wasn't talking about a person. His description was eerily detailed. A creature with long arms, a flat face, and, most disturbing of all, 6 fingers, bobwis on each hand. Even Cleveland County deputies admitted they were baffled. "It blows my mind," Sergeant Mark Self said at the time. The stories of a Sasquatch have been in this county since the 1970s, killing chickens, breaking into houses. And what Tim described sounds just like those old reports. But Tim isn't the only North Carolinian with a story to tell.
By the way, the legend of the Sasquatch has been in Cleveland County since the 1970s. This time, the spotting came into 911 as a suspicious persons report.
What do you think?
Well, you know, this is the first time I've actually heard the Bigfoot with blonde hair, but it's been so sunny out, you know, and it could have bleached out the hair a bit. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe he found a bottle of peroxide or something.
Possibly. Who knows? Yeah.
All right.
Meet John Bruner, a soft-spoken man who claims to have locked eyes with a Bigfoot for a full 10 seconds. It was huge, John says. Bipedal. No hair on its face, flat nose, stringy, matted hair on its body. And it smelled awful. Worse than a wet dog, almost like a musty, rotten hide. John's sighting happened during a weekend Bigfoot hunting expedition. It was the closest encounter he's ever had, and it left him shaken. The thing took 5 steps and covered 40 yards, John explains. 5 steps? That's not human. That's like something out of a superhero comic. Like LeBron James on steroids. Skeptics laughed, but John didn't care. He knows what he saw, and he's not alone. 911 dispatchers in the region have fielded calls from terrified residents reporting strange noises, knocks, and even screams echoing through the night.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, no, Ziggy, no.
Then there's Ebony Bird, whose encounter happened in the small town of Littleton on a chilly November evening in 2019. She was driving near Bowers Road, headed to the post office before it closed. I came to a stop sign, she says. I looked down the road, and there it was. Bigfoot. It was standing upright like a man, broad-shouldered, its arms hanging past its knees. Ebony was so stunned she kept driving, then turned around and went back. I couldn't find it again, she explains. But I know what I saw. It wasn't a man. It wasn't a bear. It was Bigfoot. Her cousin didn't believe her, laughing when she called to tell the story. But Ebony's aunt didn't laugh. She told me there have been sightings in that area before, Ebony says. That gave me chills. I wasn't crazy. Other people have seen it too. For Ebony, the moment was life-changing.
But it wasn't a human. It was not a human. So I turned around, I put my stuff in the post office, and I came back and I turned down here and I drove all the way down to where I saw it, and I couldn't find anything in sight. There's a church back on this side, and then there's a graveyard.
I've never been one to lie or make up stories, she says firmly. I was shaken for days after that. But I know what I saw: 3 different witnesses, 3 very different encounters, all pointing to one chilling truth. There is something roaming the woods of North Carolina, something massive, intelligent, and powerful enough to terrify even lifelong outdoorsmen. Whether it was a 10-foot creature chasing Tim's dogs, a massive shadow stepping toward John in the wilderness, or the broad-shouldered figure Ebony saw in the middle of the road, one thing is certain. The legend of Sasquatch in North Carolina is alive and well, and the people who have seen it will never forget the moment they came face to face with the unexplained. It's quiet in southern Alberta, back at a spot called Cow Corner. The trees stretch high, and the forest feels alive but gentle. He has been here a few months ago, leaving small gifts for those who visit these woods. Today he is curious to see what might have changed, and Blue is with him. The dog is eager, alert, and ready to explore. The air is soft, carrying a hint of smoke drifting from distant fires, and the forest smells fresh and earthy. It's peaceful, yet there is a sense of presence, something more moving quietly in the woods. As he starts down the narrow trail, the ground is damp, leaves glistening, and small branches tucked into the soil. Blue moves ahead, sniffing, ears twitching at sounds barely heard. Occasionally, a distant cow's low call echoes, or maybe it is something else moving quietly just beyond sight. The forest seems to speak in subtle ways: the bending of a branch, the soft tap of wood underfoot. Every small detail draws attention, making it clear that Cow Corner is full of life that cannot always be seen.
So this is interesting. Seeing something else here, guys. I'm spinning around. Okay, folks. Getting back in here to the thick of it. He's getting tuckered out already.
Reaching the gifting area, he notices small changes from the last visit. A Y-shaped stick wedged between trees, a sitting log not where remembered, and stones that may have been moved or taken. There is a gentle, musky scent in the air, a quiet reminder that the woods are visited. He leaves a few gifts, red plums, cranberries, and raw almonds, tokens of respect. Blue enjoys his treats, chasing squirrels and sometimes startling at noises far off in the trees. Each snap and tap keeps him alert, yet calm, aware that the forest has its own rhythm and stories.
I don't remember that. This is my sitting log right here. I don't remember that big log laying there. And then one little noble.
The creek near the gifting site murmurs softly as they cross. Water always seems to attract life here, and the forest seems to pause around it. He takes a slow walk back into the thicker trees, noticing small patterns, stones in rectangles, slight clearings, and subtle signs of previous visitors. Blue moves carefully, sensing things that may be missed. As the light fades, smoke from distant fires drifts across the forest, softening shapes and colors. The woods feel alive, quietly observing them as they leave, the small gifts left behind as a sign of respect and curiosity. Heading back toward the main road, the shadows grow longer, and the sounds of snaps and taps continue softly on both sides of the trail. It's a peaceful conclusion to the visit, yet full of questions. Who else passes through Cow Corner? What messages do these small offerings hold? The forest keeps its secrets, but in these quiet walks, he witnesses a little of its magic. Blue and he move gently through the trees, leaving the woods as they found them, alive, mysterious, and quietly welcoming. In the deep, dark woods of the southern United States, wildlife like deer, turkey, and bear roam freely. But beyond these familiar creatures, something far more unexpected has made its existence known. A creature that residents whisper about but few have truly seen.
A lot of people have their dogs killed, had their chickens killed. I know a family down around Red Bluff area down by Columbia. They lost 7 or 8 geese. A coyote is not going to mess with a goose.
The documentary begins with the mention of the chilling incidents from the Red Bluff area, where families have suffered attacks that cannot be explained. One household story is how they lost nearly a dozen geese in a single night. The birds weren't torn apart like a predator might do in a hurry. Instead, something, or shall we say, someone, had plucked the geese, laying the feathers in a very neat pile before vanishing with the bodies. A coyote, the locals tried to believe, wouldn't bother geese in a group, let alone exhibit such calculated behavior. But the creepiness increases.
They actually heard something beating on the side of their house one night, and something peeked in on their 8-year-old daughter and looked in the window at their daughter. The daughter described it as a big gorilla-looking thing.
Soon, we hear the story of a family in North Mississippi whose home was not only stalked but also physically attacked. One night, loud banging on the side of their house woke them up. What followed was even more terrifying, as their 8-year-old daughter saw a creature looking in through her bedroom window. Described as a beast resembling a gorilla, it had to hunch to see through the chest-height windowsill.
Now, the bottom of the windowsill, is about chest high. So this thing was leaned over and hunched over and looking in the window.
Its interest wasn't just for a second or so. The very next night, something returned with more violent intentions. That follows the moment that has shocked Bigfoot hunters to this day.
Something had gone out there and picked up an outside air conditioning unit and threw it 30 feet across the yard. The first dent in the ground was 20 feet away. So something threw this thing 20 feet in the air before it hit the ground and rolled another 10 feet.
The family's outdoor air conditioning unit, which is a heavy, grounded machine, was thrown 30 feet across the yard, The first impact mark was found 20 feet from where it originally was installed, suggesting it had been thrown through the air before coming to a halt. Whatever or whoever did that had to possess immense strength and, more importantly, an opposable thumb to even be able to grab the unit. Bears, despite being a constant in Mississippi, just don't have the agility or the temperament for such calculated action. Locals know this. They've seen bears. They know what a bear is capable of doing and what not. These are not once-in-a-while events, but part of a growing pattern in the South.
And it takes an opposable thumb to be able to pick something up and throw it. A bear can't, it's not going to pick it up. It would swat it away. And there are a lot of bears in Mississippi. They are making a big comeback, but this was not a bear.
Families are now hesitant to even step outside after dusk without a firearm. The forests they once explored freely now inspire a primal fear. These are not stories once told to scare off kids. These are testimonies from men and women who have lived through something inexplicable. And as one seasoned witness says, "A human didn't do this, a bear couldn't do this, but something sure did." The Marble Mountains, a rocky, roadless stretch of wilderness in far northern California, seem very breathtaking, but only some know that they can actually be very unforgiving. With no cell phone signals, no roads, and no help if things go wrong, it's not a place you explore casually. It's a place for those who trust the land, or those who are ready to risk not coming back. Years ago, Wilson did just that. Invited on a multi-night pack trip into the Marble Mountains by an outdoorsy woman he met on a camping trip, he couldn't say no. After all, how often does someone get an invite to explore deep wilderness with horses, clear blue skies, and just one companion?
I remember everything was really quiet, which wasn't uncommon for there. All of a sudden, that silence was broken by a deep, loud, throaty roar.
But what began as a serene adventure gradually turned creepy. On their final morning, while washing the breakfast dishes behind an alpine lake, the peaceful atmosphere was violently shattered as a guttural howl sliced through the canyon. It was so loud, so primal that it echoed across the walls of the canyon like something out of this world. Our narrator, frozen in shock, was struck by the impossible quality of the sound. It wasn't a bear, it wasn't a wolf, and it definitely wasn't human. He describes the howl as something he'd never heard in the wild, except perhaps the howler monkeys he once encountered in Costa Rica. But this was Northern California, not Central America.
The howler monkeys in Costa Rica did not sound like any animal I've ever heard around here. I remember a long time ago listening to the Art Bell radio show. Some people sent him some recordings of what were supposed to be Bigfoot yells.
He recalls something similar, an audio clip played on Art Bell's legendary paranormal radio show. Recordings sent in by listeners who claimed they captured Bigfoot yells in the wild. The similarity sent chills down his spine then, and again now, just mentioning it. What's more disturbing is his companion's reaction. She said nothing. She simply stood up, began packing the horses, and didn't speak a word during the long ride back to civilization.
I could tell she was just on a mission to get out of there. It wasn't until we were back at the trailhead, we loaded up the horses into the trailer, we were back on the road, safely driving back home.
We do get the idea that this sound was something extraordinary. After days of easygoing conversation, laughter, and friendship, the woman suddenly made a decision, focused only on getting out. Only once they reached the safety of the truck and began driving did she finally speak. That's when she confessed to a previous Bigfoot encounter she had that had left her shaken. And just before this trip, she had binged Bigfoot shows, triggering her old fears. The howl, she admitted, came from the very ridge they had to cross to exit the valley. She hadn't panicked because he hadn't.
That's when she told me about a Bigfoot encounter she had a few years earlier. She was out in the woods, hunting, I think. She laid up against a tree to take a nap, woke up to something running into the woods.
But if she'd been alone, she said, she would have completely lost it. She made another startling revelation. She had known from the start that he owned firearms and that he would likely bring them. It was, in hindsight, one of the reasons she asked him to join her. She didn't want to go into Bigfoot country alone, not without someone who came adequately armed. By the end, he doesn't believe it was Bigfoot. He doesn't even jump to conclusions. But the question hangs in the air like fog clinging to pine. If not Bigfoot, then what? We've journeyed through forests, mountains, and lonely back roads, hearing the voices of those who swear they've come face to face with Bigfoot. Believers call it proof. Skeptics call it imagination. But the mystery still exists. What do you believe? Could the legend be closer than we think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe.